Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories. Where today, am I the jerk for refusing to give my daughter a kidney? I'm 38, female. My daughter, who's 21, is suffering from kidney failure. We've been estranged for 3 years, and it was due mainly to the fact that she was taking her health issues, as well as her fights with her dad, who's 38, and stepmom, who's 31, out on me. I spent hundreds of my husband, Ethan, who's 49, and my own money on making therapy for my daughter, but she has remained bitter and difficult. Ethan and I have 2 kids, who are 9 and 11. I had to give up quite a bit in terms of career prospects due to my first pregnancy. My parents also disowned me, but then Ethan helped me get a degree in accounting and also a real estate license. I have connections from Ethan that are helping me do nearly 6 figures in real estate commissions, and I just joined an accounting firm that hired me based on the client connections I have from Ethan. Now I'm working 50-hour weeks, but I love it because I'm finally earning 6 figures, and Ethan's business is also at a place where he can work at home. My daughter at this point was mostly low contact since she turned 18, but now she's back because she needs a kidney. I made the mistake of letting friends know about her situation, and everybody I know from my mommy groups from when my daughter was born started dogpiling on me saying, "You gotta do this, mama," and like I'd be held down to get my kidney. Because of this pressure, despite Ethan saying no, I went to the doctor and found out I was a match. I tried to reach out to my daughter's dad to see if he's a match, but her stepmom had apparently already called her screaming that her dad was the provider for her and 3 kids, so how dare she ask this of her father? My ex said that his duty was obviously to his wife and his kids, so no testing for him. And so he and everybody else just wanted to be my kidney. I tried to communicate to my daughter that I'm afraid of surgery. I was too new to take that much time from work, so I'd likely be working while in pain. She replied asking, "Doesn't Ethan make a lot of money?" I told her again how risky the surgery was, and she said, echoing my friends, "I don't care. This isn't about you." I was so furious from that conversation that when I went to see the doctor and the doctor asked if somebody was coercing me, I told him that at this point, I'd rather die than continue to serve my ungrateful, rude daughter. I said I indeed felt coerced, and if I did do it, I'd probably end up having burning resentment towards the recipient and the doctors if I woke up in pain. The doctor immediately said I am therefore not a compatible donor and that I should never feel like I'm a prisoner. I told my friends and Ethan this, and while Ethan just asked if I was okay and that the boys and him need me, my friends were furious and tried to shame me online with, "What kind of mother posts?" They're insisting I go back and say I was lying and that I've changed my mind, to sign something showing I wasn't coerced and get it notarized if it's what it takes. Am I the jerk? I think OP is hiding a lot of information that will paint her in a bad light. This write-up is full of narcissistic behavior. She spent most of the post talking about her husband and money. Most of the time she talked about her daughter, it was dismissive, then whined and whined that her mom friends think she's a bad mother for not wanting to save her own kid. No one owes anyone an organ, but even ignoring that, this lady is insufferable. You're the jerk. You think she isn't scared? She's 21 and is facing this disease. It's obvious that you resent her for being born and holding you back. It's not her fault. You chose the behavior that created her. Your parents suck, but it's not her fault. You spent money for her therapy. What about your therapy? Sounds like nobody cares about this young woman. No wonder she's angry. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her daughter? Please let us know. I discovered that my boyfriend is cheating after buying him an expensive Christmas gift. I, 25 female, discovered that my ex-boyfriend, male 26, had been cheating on me for 5 months. I was really devastated and felt a lot of rage inside of me, especially after buying him a new PlayStation 5 since he wanted one but couldn't afford it. I was saving up a lot of money to buy him the console with some games. We'd been dating for 3 years and living together for a year and a half. I immediately kicked him out after his side girl messaged me apologizing, not knowing that he had a girlfriend. I didn't believe her because I trusted my boyfriend a lot, but she came with receipts. There were a lot of messages where he flirted with her and he even sent pictures to her. I was just so upset. The worst part is when I confronted him. He didn't even try to deny it and just called me boring. He insulted me a lot, saying I was no fun and he deserves better. I was really enraged. I started screaming at him that he doesn't do anything around here and never paid rent because he's a lazy, jobless jerk who can't even bother looking for a decent job. At one point, I mentioned how he will never get the PS5 that I bought and return it soon to the store. He looked like a deer in headlights. That jerk. He immediately changed his attitude and acted sorry, started apologizing and crying, saying he never meant to cheat and promised me he would make it up to me. He really wants that PS5, doesn't he? He's a jerk. He never cared for my feelings. He only cared when I mentioned something he wanted. Such hypocrisy. I wasted no time and kicked him out. He's still sending me a lot of texts filled with apologies and even an ugly photo of him crying. I told him to not waste my time because he won't get the PS5. We're done. Then I blocked him. I won't take the PS5. I already have one, but I remembered that my parents were planning on buying one for my little brother. The plan was going to be them buying the PS5 and I would buy the games for it with an extra PS Store gift card. But looks like I will give my parents a call and tell them there's a change in our plans for my brother's gift. Let me guess. When you previously asked him to get a job and contribute to the household, he called you a gold digger. Good for you, not taking his gaslighting and BS any longer. I'm sure you figured out by now that he was never going to contribute and intended to use you for a free ride while he had his fun. You are so well rid of him. Best Christmas gift you could give yourself. OP. He actually called me controlling. We fought a lot about it, but this was my first time showing a serious reaction to it. Update. Today was amazing. I celebrated Christmas with my family, my parents, and my little brother. My parents cooked the best food, so I ate well after not having an appetite for a few days. It was wonderful. As for my parents' agreement about the gifts, we agreed on something. I'll gift the PS5 and games to my brother. My parents bought him an Oculus for the new PS5 and other accessories for the console. When the time came for the presents, I was shocked to learn that my brother got me an expensive gift. He got me some makeup from Sephora and a gift card. My parents then informed me that my brother was saving for my gift since the beginning of the year. I cried. I literally started bawling my eyes out and I gave him a big hug. I thanked them a lot for the gift and said that I loved it. When he opened my parents' present, he was really confused and stated that he doesn't have a PS5 for this Oculus. I told him to open my gift. Then he opened it and started crying immediately and hugged me. I don't know what came over me, but I started crying with him. I really love my brother. He's really sweet and a good-behaved kid. He's 12 now. That's why he deserved every gift that he got. It was expensive, yes, but it was worth every penny to see him happy. After we all opened our gifts, I helped him set up the PS5 in his room and we played some games together. Suddenly, he tells me that he loves me and I'm the best big sister in the world. For the third time, I started crying. So there you have it. I had the best Christmas with my family, and seeing my brother so happy was worth the heartbreak I went through. As for my garbage ex, he's still making new accounts on Instagram to apologize. I told him to buzz off, and I know that he's only apologizing because he wants the PS5, not because he feels guilty. I mentioned that I gave it to someone who deserves it way more than he does. He started going off on me, and I said if he didn't leave me alone, I'll call the cops. He stopped after that, and I haven't heard from him ever since. Am I the jerk for saying I don't want to be called aunt? I'm 32, female. My father is 20 years older than his younger brother, David, who's 34. Due to various factors, David spent a majority of his early years with my parents. By the time I was 10 and David was 12, he moved in. David and my dad look nearly identical, and people always assumed that he was his son. My parents always said that he was their first kid. They loved him like a son, etc. I always felt a bit weird about this. David is a nice guy, but he's not my brother. I never understood why it was my parents' job to pick up the slack of my grandparents. It caused a few disagreements in my youth that always boiled down to, David has nothing, you have everything, be nice. I hated that I essentially went from an only child to a younger sister without being asked. I never looked at David as a brother, but obviously due to our small age gap, I never saw him as an uncle. To me, he's just family. We get along well. David is now married and they have a daughter, Arya. My parents are grandma and grandpa to her. It does make me feel some sort of way that they've christened her as their first grandbaby, but I've accepted I can't control how they feel and relate themselves to David. So long as when my husband and I have kids, they're the same to them, and I know they will be. That's fine. The real issue is that David, his wife, and my parents have tried making me Aunt Tabitha. I don't like it. Arya is not my niece. I tried to just refer to myself as my first name with her, but the hint wasn't going through. As Arya is too little to speak, 8 months, I plan to let it go for now. Yesterday, we were at my parents' for Christmas. Arya was being fussed over, as usual. When it came time for David and his wife to help her unwrap the gifts my husband and I got her, David told Arya, "This is from Auntie Tabitha and Uncle Mike." Without thinking, I said, "Just Tabitha and Mike." David gave me an odd look, but went back to unwrapping. Later on, privately, David asked if I was okay. I said, "Yes, why?" He said I got weird during gifts. I said, "Not weird, just factual. I'm not Arya's aunt." He was still confused. I said I'm not his sister. This seemed to hurt his feelings, but he said okay, apologized, and said he wouldn't say it again. My mom pulled me aside later and said I was cruel to David. She said he considered me his sister. I simply said I'm not, and I'm not that baby's aunt. My mom gave me a disgusted look. She and my dad barely spoke to me the rest of the night, though David and his wife were polite. My husband feels there were better ways of going about it. Am I the jerk? It's okay to feel how you feel. Your feelings are 100% valid. It's nice they're trying to include you. My kids call both my best friends aunt and uncle whilst they're young, but naturally will drop to first names when they're older. It's not always about blood relations. You're the jerk. While you're technically correct, it seems you're holding some weird resentment over the fact that your dad took in his little brother and that families, are meant to love and take care of each other. Are you often this unsympathetic towards people, even family? Do you only look at things as one way or the other? I don't know. I feel like your behavior from this post is very odd. Just as you have accepted that you can't control how your parents relate to David, they need to accept that they can't control how you relate to David. They can decide to think of him like a son, but they can't force you to think of him like a brother. Not the jerk. What's this? Another person on Reddit making a huge deal out of nothing? What a surprise. When people have lives with no problems or worries, they come up with stupid things like this to get upset over. I feel bad for your family having to deal with you and your BS. You're the jerk. You're 34 years old and still holding on to the "I'm not the center of attention" jealousy that you had when you were a kid. David is technically your uncle, but he was raised as your brother. The level of disregard and disrespect and just sheer jealousy and bitterness in your post. You really need to do some self-reflection and apologize to David and the rest of your family. Hope it's not too late for you to fix your relationships. Otherwise, when you do have kids, we'll be saying, "Am I the jerk for telling my mom she doesn't love my kid enough?" Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her brother or her uncle? You know what I mean. Please let us know. Bruh. I wasted 2 hours of my sister's time because she refused to listen to me. When I was younger, around a decade ago, I used to love 2 things, cars and roads. Still, to this day, I love cars, but the way I loved roads was through maps. My favorite activity when I was bored was to go on the Maps app and look at the highways that surrounded my area. My oldest sister at the time was the only sibling of mine who had a license. One summer day, she was bored and decided to take me and her boyfriend to an amusement park an hour and a half away from home. The story begins on the way back. My father needed the car at the car dealership as it was scheduled to have routine maintenance done the next morning. My father sent her the address of the dealership and requested that she drop the car off and he will go and pick us up at the dealer. Now that the context is out of the way, here's where my sister made a mistake. She typed in the address and clicked on the nearest place with that road. The issue is that the nearest place with that road was a town going an hour in the opposite direction. She gets onto the road that I'll call State Route 100. This intersects with Interstate 1, which we were supposed to get onto. When she passes the highway, the following interaction ensues. Me, "You were supposed to make that right." Her, "That's not what the map says." 5 minutes later, I say it again. Me, "We're heading in the wrong direction. This does not go home." Her, "Maybe it's an alternate route that's faster." Me, "I don't think a road going in the opposite direction is faster." She cuts me off, now annoyed. "Listen, I'm going to focus on what the map says, not you. Just stop already." And with that, I followed her instruction. After all, why would I complain on going on a road I've never been on? From what I remember after that, we stopped for gas about half an hour in. My sister was still convinced we were going in the right direction, but why should I correct her? She's listening to the map after all. The fallout. We hit an expressway, and my sister's convinced we made it home and is pleased with herself. This was until an overhead sign said, Town B Regional Airport, 1 mile. At this point, my sister realized her mistake. She starts freaking out and saying, I didn't know this road went here. I was following the map. OP, why didn't you tell me we were going the wrong way? I was scared of her getting mad at me, so I just said, after you told me to stop, I just stopped paying attention to where you were going. She eventually pulled into a gas station and saw where she set her GPS to. After correcting her mistake, we head the opposite direction, although the car ride was rather silent. We eventually see signs for the amusement park we started at because she had to turn left at the road I originally told her to turn at. And this is how I turned a drive that was supposed to be an hour and a half into a 3.5-hour journey. Years have passed since this happened, and I told my father, who thought it was hysterical. I often consider telling my sister, but we sadly rarely speak anymore. I feel my boyfriend is taking advantage of my kindness. I confronted him. Am I the jerk? My boyfriend, 33 male, and I, 38 female, have been dating since summer of 2021, and since then he has stayed at my apartment every day and every night. He owns his home less than a mile away, which he said he purchased for his 3 roommates who are looking for a place to live. He only charges them $300 or so a month, out of the goodness of his heart. I've only been there twice for house parties, which I essentially invited myself to when we were getting to know each other. I never have asked him for money, not for rent, not for utilities, not for the groceries I always have to buy. He never goes shopping for any food or household supplies. 2 separate instances, I asked if he could get toilet paper. Once, he bought a small 4-pack at the gas station he was already shopping at, which I'm assuming is just to tide us over until I got a better pack. He has IBS and goes through a lot. And the second time, he brought in a big garbage bag of almost empty rolls from his bathrooms at work, which they save. He doesn't cook and said in the past it's not important to him, or he doesn't think of it, yet will certainly eat the food that I buy and make. For the most part, I was more than happy to provide, but as time goes on, I feel like I'm carrying the mental load of living together by myself. My apartment is in disarray, and I can never get it under control with only me doing any work. I've mentioned parts of the above to him over the past year, and sometimes it would result in him sheepishly doing 1 sink full of dishes and leaving the rest for me. Or when I tell him he has to figure out dinner for us for 1 night out of the 7 because I'm working late, that means he's DoorDashing us something at 8 p.m. It's things like that that make me start to resent him and ruin my attraction to him. It hurts my feelings. For such a nice guy, how can he be so thoughtless? It feels thoughtless to me anyway. I told him tonight I feel it would be best if we return to our old living situation, him at his home and me alone here. I expressed I can't, or won't, handle all of the responsibility of our lives co-inhabiting. I also said it really hurt my feelings that for Christmas, he got me Drano, which he wanted to give me on Christmas. Meanwhile, the sink has been backing up for a month, and a set of ladles. He didn't say anything. He just sat there and stared at me. I asked if he had anything to say, any feelings about it. He said he didn't know what to say. I felt insulted. There are far too many women in this same situation, I'm finding as I read Reddit. Are all men truly just one-track minded? They only think of themselves? Why don't men just take the initiative to help their partners without having to be given lists or told what to do or nagged about it? Update. So since this, he was still in my living room for a few hours. I've been in bed sick, and laying there, I got upset. I walked back in and asked twice more. You have nothing to say? No words? No, I'm sorry you feel that way. What can I do? Nothing? No emotion? I can't believe it. This was supposed to be my best friend. I told him we're breaking up and he needs to go home now. I'm honestly really surprised and hurt by his lack of reaction. I should have known. Update 2. I packed his things and he picked up this morning. I asked him again if he has any hurt feelings about this and he was silent. I'm sorry, but I started to cry because it's just so hurtful. He said he was blindsided, then silent. I said, that's all I get after 2.5 years? In tears, and he just said, bye Lauren, like he normally would. I needed him to hear me or understand where I was coming from, but I guess he doesn't, or doesn't care to. He's all right with just walking away with his things with no conversation or words from the heart. This is the most painful thing out of all of this. His talks of getting a house, getting married. Why bother if you're just going to throw in the towel when me supporting us gets overwhelming? For those of you who asked why I kept this going for so long, we met when my father passed and grew close. I wanted to have him in my life. It was positive and a breath of fresh air from my former partners. He was a kind, sensitive, thoughtful, caring guy when I met him. He even, on his own volition, promised me that he wouldn't be a low-tier dude like the others. I don't know if he's on the spectrum, many of you asked. He's joked about it in the past. He's not a bad guy. I guess he really just doesn't care, and I've got to accept that and try to learn from where I went wrong in the beginning. Update 3. You know what? I painted him in a bad light. Sure, these things happen, but ultimately he's a good guy. Maybe we're just not a good fit. Perhaps I went about things the wrong way by escalating it so quickly. Perhaps I'm too quick to blame and not good at communicating in our relationship. Either way, I got the space I so desperately wanted. I appreciate all of your input today. The response was astounding. I guess the takeaway to my failed relationship is to be sure to check in with your partner, where they're at, if their needs are being met, if there's anything you can do, if you're both still on the same page. I'd be willing to bet he doesn't own that house. Maybe ask next time you see one of his tenants. Sounds more like a total leech. Not the jerk. Your boyfriend sucks. Why are you still dating him? You're being a doormat and being his mom. Stop. And no, not all men are like that. Most are wonderful and kind and do housework and communicate and aren't blank-faced when you talk to them about issues. Get you one of those men, not this one that you're raising. Most is being incredibly generous. I've met plenty of men like this. It's why I no longer date. My ex-husband's new girlfriend is accusing me of being the reason he didn't propose to her on Christmas. My ex-husband and I, both late 40s, were a real love story for 17 years. He was my world and I loved everything about him. I thought he loved me too, but about 2 years ago, for about 2 months, he was changed. The change was so palpable that I knew it in my heart there was another woman. He stopped kissing me good morning or good night, stopped asking me on dates, and always declined when I asked. He didn't doze off with his head in my lap to a movie every evening, always missing the end. Now he even sat on the other couch. He stopped saying he loved me, and he stopped texting me during the day. I didn't know what to do other than wait and see, and sure enough, after 2 months, he told me he was in love and wanted a divorce. I was heartbroken, but I couldn't do anything about it. I would never beg someone to love me, no matter how much I loved them. He moved out and started the divorce. His new girlfriend, early 30s, moved in with him not long after that. My ex-husband is very successful, and our divorce was finalized a couple of weeks ago. I haven't seen my ex-husband much since he moved out. I don't know what got into me. I've kept civil and prideful during the separation. I was surprised that he was with his lawyer because I thought he just signed and didn't need to be there. I signed, and then I looked at him for the first time in 2 years, and just without giving myself the time to stop and keep my dignity, I smiled and said that he now lost the last woman who he ever knew for sure loved him and saw him for who he was and not for his money or assets. He was also smiling at first, probably relieved that I finally was fine enough to look at him again. He complained to our son that I never looked at him anymore. His smile faltered and turned into shock, and then he started crying. I was terrified of what I did and just left almost running. I got a text from his girlfriend this morning with many insults about me, my character, and my looks and age. Because he was supposed to have proposed on Christmas with all her family present, but he didn't. He now refuses to talk about it with her or any of her family, and she means that it was my fault. I ruined their relationship. I blocked her, but I can't help but wonder if I really did ruin their relationship. I even wonder if I care. All I know is that he looked so old and pathetic. I wonder if I ever really knew him or loved him. You can't ruin something that was already broken. Let's be honest, if he was so sure of their relationship enough to end your marriage, a simple remark from you should have been brushed off. The fact that it hit him so hard means he had the doubts to begin with. My sister is having her 5th baby and expects us to be happy for her. I, female 18, have a sister, female 38, who we will call Kay for privacy reasons. Kay has 4 kids with her husband, who are 3, 8, 2, and 11. Kay is a stay-at-home mom, and her husband works in air conditioning. Kay and her husband came over with their kids on his time off to tell us something. She said that they're pregnant with their 5th baby. My mom was overjoyed, and I wasn't really paying attention. I was focusing on the TV. Then my sister says, "So, what do you think about the news?" I said, "Cool, awesome." Then my sister says, "Just cool? You don't seem that excited for me." And I said, "Well, what do you want me to do? Jump up and down and scream my head off?" I could see if this was like your first kid that you were expecting, like a first-time mother moment. You already have 4 kids and you're on your 5th pregnancy. By this time, you get used to it. Was this baby like really hard to conceive? Like, was it hard for you to get pregnant? And Kay said, "No, it just happened. I took the test a week ago." And I said, "Okay then. So after a certain point, you can't expect people to be as enthusiastic as they were for your first." Kay said, "I thought you would be happy for me." And I was like, "I am, but it's not that exciting for me since you've been pregnant before." She got mad and left with her husband and kids and did not stay for dinner. My mom thinks I should apologize to Kay for not being excited about her pregnancy announcement. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Edit. I just want to clarify that this 5th baby was not a baby that was hard to conceive, or they had been trying and wanting a 5th baby. It just happened. Edit 2. I have been financially supporting her other kids, giving her money and food constantly, and babysitting her kids so that she can go out every weekend to hang out with her friends. I did not add it to my original post because that's not what I was focusing on. I wanted opinions on my reaction to the announcement, not me financially supporting her kids. I could have added that, but I couldn't go over the character limit. Sorry for the confusion. Good Lord. Why is it such a terrible burden to be happy about the things that make someone you love happy? Are only firstborn kids worth celebrating? Is a child less valuable because their mother doesn't struggle with infertility? You're not the jerk for not being overly effusive, but your speech about why this baby is no big deal to you puts you in the "you're the jerk" territory. I'm kind of shocked at how heartless most of the replies here are. I'm gonna be excited and congratulatory even if the lady at the newsstand tells me she's expecting, let alone my sister, and I don't even like kids. People on here talk about a new baby being born as if someone bought a new houseplant, for goodness sake. Even like it's an annoyance, or like the sister is irritating for expecting family to care that a new baby will be born. It's so weird to see. Guess Reddit doesn't exactly gather the most socially sound people. Why should she have to be happy? She was polite, and when mommy-to-be didn't get the attention she was angling for, she threw a tantrum and left. Kids should be loved and appreciated, absolutely. But I'm so sick of this whole culture where every pregnancy announcement has to include an entire family grinning and celebrating with a parade and confetti. Not the jerk, OP. You're fine. Why should she have to be happy? Because she loves her sister and her sister is happy. That's how relationships work. I don't know about you, but when a loved one is happy about something, it makes me happy too, whether or not I care about the thing that made them happy in the first place. Not the jerk. You're 19 and they're on their 5th kid. Who would expect a teenager to be overly joyous at this point? You told her that you were happy and that should have been enough. I don't know why people think others should be jumping through the roof at this point, especially someone your age. Yeah, you're the jerk. I get your point, but it doesn't actually matter whether you are excited or not. Your sister is excited, and it's kind to share and reflect back the excitement of those we love. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for putting parental controls on my TV and ticking off my father-in-law? I, male 30s, live with my wife, female 30s. We have 2 kids who are 8 and 6. My wife's parents are staying with us temporarily as their home is having some serious repairs done after a freak accident. It wasn't their fault and luckily they had insurance. The repairs should be completed in 2 months from now. I don't really get along with my in-laws, especially my father-in-law, but I agreed to let them stay here because I thought that time would fly by and it wouldn't be that bad. But I'm posting here, so I guess I was wrong. My mother-in-law doesn't have a job, and my father-in-law works late shifts until around 11 p.m. When he gets home, they will watch YouTube in the living room and play music on it at a loud volume with our speaker system. It's not college house party bass tearing apart the walls loud, but it is still loud. My kids are not light sleepers, but this wakes them up. Then they come to wake me up because they're wanting me to make it stop. My kids need to be rested for school, and I need to get up in the morning to drop them off and go to work. My wife works overnight shifts, so she doesn't witness this. I've tried to talk to my in-laws about it and ask that they please keep the noise down after my kids' bedtime, which is 8:30 p.m. I don't expect complete silence, but I really don't think they need to have the TV on loud late at night. My father-in-law argued with me and said that he doesn't finish work until 11 p.m., so I'm basically expecting him to not do the things he enjoys after work. I told him he can do it before work or on his days off, or it's tough luck. He complained to my wife, who's now taking his side and saying that the kids need to learn how to sleep through a bit of everyday noise. I told her it's not everyday noise and that he and mother-in-law are being excessively noisy and inconsiderate. She's just not there to see it. My father-in-law has been sending me links to buy earplugs for the kids. I've gotten really fed up with this. It's not my in-laws' house, and they're staying with us as guests, and I think that they're being really selfish. I decided to put parental controls on the TV so that my in-laws can't use it after 8:30 p.m. until 6 a.m. the next day. Between those times, the TV can't be used without putting in the password, and only I know it. This doesn't affect my wife, as she doesn't get off work until 6 a.m. and isn't normally home until 6:20ish. My father-in-law is now incredibly upset with me and said that I'm acting like a child and he keeps pestering me, demanding the password. My wife is also mad at me for upsetting her dad. I'm just so annoyed at this whole situation and I'm sick of hearing about it, so I just want to know if I'm morally in the clear. Not the jerk. Your in-laws are rude and inconsiderate, and your wife should be managing them and backing you up in this. Had she done so, you would not need to take such drastic measures. Both you and the kids need your sleep. The in-laws are guests in your home. This is wildly inappropriate for them to be acting this way. If they don't like the house rules, they can go to a motel. Not the jerk. Who stays as a guest in someone else's home knowing that they have kids and expects them to be okay with them playing loud music all night? Even without the kids in the equation, that's still totally unreasonable. Not the jerk. Everyone needs to make an effort to make a situation like this as easy as possible for everyone involved. That means being a considerate person. It seems as though your in-laws never learned basic manners. Your kids' basic needs trump your father-in-law's wanting to watch TV at a loud volume in the middle of the night. Constantly disrupted sleep is bad for everyone, but for younger kids it's even worse. The kids shouldn't have to wear earplugs. Your in-laws could get headphones instead. So good for you for drawing a line. They seem to not understand it any other way. If they continue behaving the way that they have, they can look for another place to stay. If I don't like it, I can find another job? Okay. I worked at a small shop serving an electrical apprenticeship. Myself and the shop manager had had a few run-ins, and I assume he disliked me as much as I disliked him. I had refused to do a job and told him he didn't pay me enough. It was at the stockyards, and I was expected to put on a set of waders, crawl down into raw fat reclamation tank, and replace a submersible pump. Wasn't going to happen. Another time, he wanted me to lie to a customer to make an issue that they were having sound like it wasn't our fault. I refused and told him if he wanted me to lie about it, he was going to have to drive out to the job site and do it himself. He told me to keep my mouth shut and did come out. I think the only reason he didn't fire me was because I was by far one of the most efficient and versatile employees. This fact had me questioning how much I was getting out of this apprenticeship and was passively looking around for another job to apprentice at. My wage scale was structured, and I got regular raises, bringing me closer to journeyman's level over my time as an apprentice. So I had to find someone that would sign up to complete my apprenticeship as well as want to hire me. One of our better journeymen had gone to another shop and had introduced me to the owners. We had talked about what it would take to get me to move. Things were progressing, but nothing committed to at that point. Cue the malicious compliance. It's my evaluation and raise time. My manager calls me up to the conference room and explains that due to my performance and the shop being in a slow period, he was not going to give me the 25-cent an hour raise as my contract said, but was going to give me $1 more an hour once I became a journeyman. We argued, and I told him if I can't trust you for a quarter, why would I believe you for $1? The argument ended in him telling me, if you don't like it, you can always quit. Oh, really? I picked up the conference room phone on the table in front of us and called the shop I had been talking with. I asked the owner if I brought my own tools over today, would I have a job? After a quick and uncomfortable discussion with his partner, he said yes. I informed my manager and I resigned effective now. I loaded my tools up, punched out, and went straight to work that afternoon. My in-laws demanded that I pay for their dinner. I, female 32, recently inherited a good amount of money from my mom. I keep the money in a separate account as I still haven't decided what to do with it, and I didn't want it to go to waste. I noticed my husband constantly bringing up the inheritance money and making countless suggestions as to how I should spend it. Another thing is that he expects me to pay for nearly everything the past couple of weeks. For New Year's Eve, my husband and I met up with his family at a restaurant to celebrate. It was going fine until I found out that I was expected to pay for everyone at the table. My husband's mom joked about paying for dinner out of my inheritance pocket, which made me livid, but I showed no reaction, just silently paid for my own food and drinks. Then I got up and made my way out of the restaurant. They were shouting after me like a crowd, and my husband tried to get me to come back, but I drove home. He got back at 3 a.m., yelling at me, saying that I was pathetic to get up and walk out on him and his family after they had relied on me to pay for their food and thought I was gracious enough to do it, but they were wrong. He said I humiliated him and his family and that what I did was an attempt to get back at them for not being able to help mom when she was sick. Not true is all I'm gonna say. He's mad and is saying that I caused a huge rift between his family and me when it wouldn't have hurt me to pay for the celebratory dinner. Am I the jerk? So let me get this straight. Your mother passed after an illness, and the thing your in-laws take from this is, great, now she can pay for everything. Yeah, not the jerk. Not the jerk. I'd tell your husband you'd much rather have your mother around than the money, but him and his family trying to blindside you into spending it on them is disgusting. That you plan on taking your time to decide what you want to do with that money and don't want anything like this to occur again. A divorce attorney may be a wise investment since hubby showed his true colors. Instead of suggesting they spend the money on buying a house or rental property or put away for retirement, he wants her to blow the money away ever since she got it. Good for her keeping it separate. Talk to a financial advisor and maybe a divorce or probate attorney so that the inheritance is properly kept as a separate asset and not commingled into marital property. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.